being originally an abattoir site, would the abattoir... And this is a thing dear to my heart, because I believe that the world will stop and watch the opening of the Olympic Games in Homebush if there's a hint of slaughtered meat there, if there's an emblem of the original use of this magnificent facility, if we could have a Perspex abattoir up and working. Can that fit into the Birch concept tonight?
It hadn't until now.
So with this extra money?
No problem. We could do something with kangaroo meat.
Right. You've got roughly 30 million Australian dollars, Rick, haven't you? It's a pittance, really, when you think about it.
Just when you spread it around, it doesn't go that very far.
Exactly. Now, it's vital, the message, the signal that we send out to the rest of the world. It's an enormous responsibility that you have. Now, and I know that there were some criticisms of what you produced in Atlanta from the New South Wales Premier, Bob Carr, and I think Donald Horne might have had some criticisms as well. Now, we've got to send out the signal that we're the clever country. Now, have you thought about this at all as a concept, the clever country? Because we are the clever country now, Rick.
Yeah,
I know you've been away for
notes. A while. Yeah. No, the concept of Australia as a clever country eludes me still.
Right.
I think that the last thing we need to do is to show the world we're a clever country. I think we need to show we're an imaginative country.
Sure. Well, that's a terrific idea. Now,
it costs more.
It does. Now, I noticed
you've seen what's happened to education.
Sure,
it's cheap country now.
The cheap country.
Pretty safe with that cheap. Yeah, that's right.
Now, you don't. I mean, you like using a lot of volunteers. You avoid using stars. Now, is there a reason for this?
That's not true. That's not true. We use stars whenever we can.
Oh, that's true.
We had Rob, and in Barcelona particularly, we had all the opera stars.
Opera stars. Well, are there stars penciling their
name? And there were plenty
name?
of stars in Atlanta, except we didn't take many over from here.
Right. Well, what Australian stars putting their hands up? I was talking to Judy Davis the other day.
Yes,
Judy's very keen to come on board. I know Brian Brown's very keen to come on board.
Great.
And what they're pushing for is a sort of Gallipoli theme. Now, if we imagine this the arena, Rick, let's say this is what we're working with.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be lovely and simple just to have Judy and Brian walk out into the middle and say, "Hello, world, we're Australians. In Gallipoli many years ago, there was a bloke called Simpson and his out comes a reenactment of Simpson being pulled unwillingly by the donkey.
By a bicycle.
Now, is this an idea? I mean, is this a kernel of an idea? Can we start with this?
Sure can. I'd bring Judy and Brian on from opposing sides. So they actually meet.
Right.
That's why you're in charge, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, that's good. So we got Judy coming out here, Brian coming out here. What do they do when they get in the middle?
Well, the donkey actually anticipates them.
What comes from underneath?
Underneath, with Simpson on its back. Judy, Brian both say, "Isn't that clever?"
Yes.
Turn to the cameras and
wink, Matilda style.
And then we probably cut to a commercial because it's the only way we're going to get more
come
money.
Back and then they have a Lee Enfield rifle and they shoot and the plane goes off.
And Ian Terp's Teppy comes out and
sings My Way.
Oh, Johnny B. Good.
I think you've actually saved me a lot of time.
Well, it wouldn't cost much money.
No,
well, I don't know. Terps obviously get a fair bit, but I think Brian and Judy are prepared to donate their services for nothing.
Lee Enfields are hard to find.
Yes.
You've brought up actually two images that get sent to us a lot. One is the Anzac spirit, and quite genuinely, I don't think that it's a very good look for Australia to come out into the centre of the field armed with rifles, whether they're shooting donkeys, kangaroos, or other Australians. The lighting of the torch, a number of people have suggested we do it with rifles because of the success of Australia's shooters in Atlanta, including balloons full of petrol that are suspended over the torch. And a single gunshot rings out, the torch goes into flame. But the biggest suggestion is the flaming kangaroo. In fact, one of you have already sent that in, I think.
Yes, well, I know Roy sent you a terrific note, and I hope he won't mind reading the correspondence over his shoulder about simply lighting it, Lepidum style.
Blue flamer.
Blue flamer. Just bend over straight up to the torch. That you'd have to worry about rehearsal, because so many people in Australia could get that boom like that.
You start with a big can of Edgel's beans that Judy brings out. Brian has them. She's got the big lighter. Brian bends over. Kaboom! Whoa!
Welcome to the games of the 25th Olympiad.
tell you.
Well, that would be irreverent. You're looking for something irreverent.
Yeah,
what's more irreverent and more Australian than a bloody fit Australian with a big blue flag?
Well, there's nothing much that comes to mind. that's just about...
Now, do you get tired of people coming up with suggestions?
No, not if they're like that.
I noticed in some, reportage of your work, you claim that Sydney-siders are acutely sensitive of how they are perceived overseas. That can't be right, can it?
Not with suggestions like this.
No,
I mean, you can imagine how that'd be received overseas with open arms and... Yeah.
Look, I think the problem with the blow-up kangaroos was that you didn't shoot any. I think that was more Australian. Just imagine that, the final ceremony, they're all out there, and then the spotlight comes round looking for them on the top of the ute, and then bang! Over go a couple. I mean, that's so Australian, so typically Australian.
As you know, the utes were used in the opening ceremony in Atlanta, so they'd gone back to the dealers.
Yes.
They only borrowed.
And you try and represent the truth of the city, the whole city. Now, obviously, in the Barcelona thing, you could see elements of that it saw itself as with a nautical history and, sort of obviously Spanish armadas and stuff like that.
You picked up on that. There were viewers in some of the Muslim countries who saw the invasion of Spain being represented in that same sea battle, which it wasn't. Originally, it was actually going to be the journey of Olympism from the right-hand side of the arena to the left-hand side of the arena, representing Barcelona, but we developed it into the journey of Hercules to Barcelona, as you picked up earlier on in the commentary.
You weren't tempted to have a, say, Spanish Civil War theme, in which case you could have used Juan Antonio to reenact his very fine work all those years ago, with the blindfold and the firing squads. How do you get on with Juan Antonio? Do you talk much about the Civil War with him?
Not a lot, not so far. No, we've actually only ever talked once about the Barcelona ceremony, and he said that covering the athletes with the Olympic flag was probably the finest moment, and he wished that was done in every ceremony. So there may be something here we may wrap people in the flag.
Does he get hands-on? Does he, come and have a look at a rehearsal and say, no, look, this stinks?
I've got a great idea for you.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't.
Now, what about things that go wrong? I believe in Barcelona you had huge timber rings, one of which broke, and you couldn't have four, so you had to throw away that idea. I think in another game you had an American eagle, might have been in LA,
True.
and the eagle died, unfortunately. It was an eagle that had been rehearsed, I think, to come down and land at a specific time, and it was terrific, but it died, and you had to go throw that idea out. Does this happen often, big mistakes?
Yeah, every 4 years. Yeah.
So is there a trick? I mean, don't use live animals. Is that?
Yeah, actually, the Bomber was his name, an American eagle. There's an American bull-headed eagle, which is the official mascot of America, and very few of them around in 84. And we got hold of an American eagle from the National Parks and Wildlife who had been brought up from infancy, I guess it is, in a cage. And our trainer had a lot of trouble getting Bomber to fly properly, because we wanted to bring Bomber over the top of the stadium, fly down and land on a standard where the American flag was, and Bomber was going to land on top of the American flag standard, a magic moment, as the American anthem was played. And Bomber couldn't really do even 50 metres, and he was going to have to do 150 to pull this stunt off. And he was taken up in the mountains by the trainer who thought, a sniff of mountain air and launching off cliffs. Yeah, steroids, all that, happening behind the scenes. And we got a tragic phone call 2 days before opening ceremony. A Bomber's carked it, a morning flight, and he fell on an
You wouldn't have that trouble with Australian sheep. No lasting distance. If you wanted them to do something, no matter how rowdy, no matter how lewd, no matter how in keeping with the Olympic spirit, they'd be there when they had to be.
But you're no stranger to killing birds. I noticed with Barcelona, when all the birds came out, they all went into the flame. So you had burning dead birds spilling down. Was this part of the master plan?
I'm afraid, Roy, you're mixing your Olympics.
Well, which one was it, where the birds died?
That was in Korea. We actually had specific instructions from Juan Antonio not to burn the birds in Barcelona. And we went to a lot of trouble to put microwave transmitters with old ABC programming in the cauldron, and that kept them away.
Well, on a cheerful note, it's time to wish Rick all the best in the big show caper come the year 2000. And I ask everyone, whether they're at home or here in Yarners coming back to the ABC, to get out their old Olympic souvenirs and bang them together to thank Ric Birch.
Jacks has so many stories to tell. Stories of dealings with other cultures and other peoples.
So in space, the weirdest things can happen. Just be prepared. Losing my sense of maleness was an absolute nightmare. As bad as doing a hard gig. And there are times when you'll always have a hard gig. Believe me, I've had some doozies.
Oh, tell us, Master.
Well, my first professional gig was in a nightclub owned by this shifty big torb. A slimy torb if ever there was one. Gee, they're a greasy, unkempt, filthy, hard to please, vicious form of life. It's so unsettling to meet them, let alone entertain them. Anyway, I had to do a 3-hour gig for these vermin.
Oh, Master, that must have been horrible.
What's so distasteful about the Torbs?
I hate them. That's what's so distasteful. They're greasy, slobbering swine.
Well, I like them.
My first 19 sexual encounters were Torbs. They're a very fit, giving people.
Oh, I'm sure the Master didn't mean to demean the Torb people per se.
Oh, yes, I did. So you're telling me we have to meet with the Torbs before we can even set foot on Novus 9?
Correct. A protocol demands we obtain a visiting permit before we proceed to Novus 9.
Well, I don't like it. I don't like them. I'll tell you this for nothing, Dog Rooter. There's a downside to being a master of Earth. You have to bend over backwards, bowing and scraping to all kinds of intergalactic rubbish. Okay, how do we get this permit?
We orbit around the planet Tint, and they send the ambassador to us, and we entertain him.
And who is this ambassador?
A certain Slotak Gruff.
Do I have to remember his name?
It might help, Master. Slotak Gruff.
Novus 9. It must be so lonely for whoever's out there by himself. He could have been there for hundreds of years. Oh, he must be completely mad by now.
Probably, but we'll only find out with permission from the Torbs.
These Torbs, what are they like, Grade 1? I know the language, but I've never met them.
Socially, very advanced. Gender means nothing to the Torb, which can disturb Earth people who are narrow enough to see sex as only a means of procreation.
Oh, I see.
You might find meeting them interesting. A cultural exchange is the usual price for a visiting permit, and a cultural exchange for the Torb usually means kennel sex.
Oh, really? We weren't taught that in school.
Okay, crew, the Torb ambassador from Tint is due at 0900. What was his name again, Dog Rooter?
Slotak Gruff, I believe, Master.
Yes, right. Now, I want us all on our very best behaviour. Does anyone here speak the Torb tongue?
No, Master, but I am willing to learn it.
I know only 3 words, Master. Stop, go, and more.
I speak Torb quite fluently, Master.
Excellent. You can interpret then, Merkin. Okay, prepare yourselves. He's due now.
The curse of fire blight, this plant-killing disease is sweeping the nation. It was discovered by New Zealand scientist Chris Hales a couple of weeks ago. He blew into Burtown and pointed the finger at some plants in the Melbourne Botanical Gardens. Roy, how did you respond to the news?
I was very shocked, HG, to think that we've got fire blight, I should say, in Australia. I'm very suspicious. I don't really think we have.
Well, what are the fire blight symptoms, Roy? And, you know, what should kiddies be looking for in their backyards?
Well, look, it's easy to confuse with a lot of other things, HG. Look, I went into the Botanical Gardens here in Sydney just this afternoon to see if I could spot any blight. Now, this specimen here, if we have a look at this very, very carefully, actually, this looks like fire blight from a distance, but if you have a look at it up close, I don't know if we can get this on the... can we see this here? Yes, we can see it's got all the hallmarks of fire blight, i.e. a plant is dying. But this isn't fire blight. Here, if we have another look here at this piece here, this is from a peach tree, HG. Yes. A peach tree. Again, we examine it. Fire blight. No, not really. It's got black spot, but that's natural for peach trees at this time of year. I have no doubt. And this is a bit of a petunia, I think, here, HG. This is a miniature petunia. You can have a look there. All the hallmarks of fire blight, i.e. if you have a look at the brownish leaves there, you have a look yourself, you have a look at the brownish leaves, they look as if they're fire blighted.
Yeah, they certainly are, Roy. Right, jingos, it's a living,
bacteria, isn't it?
It's a living, creeping thing that's consuming everything in its wake.
It leaps out at you, doesn't it?
Certainly
But this is just natural attrition of leaf matter here. This is natural death. Because as we go to this time of year, leaves start falling off.
Yeah, autumn, etc.
Autumn, etc., etc. Now, if these were taken to New Zealand, they'd say fire blight.
Yeah.
Fire blight.
Yeah.
Now, I've been down. I had a look at the Cotoneaster at the Melbourne Botanical Gardens earlier in the week. It doesn't look to me like fire blight. It just looks like a Cotoneaster that hasn't had much water. So I see a massive conspiracy here.
Well, look, Roy, I think it's fair to say that the Hales thesis about the fire blight does leave a little bit to be desired, because I've looked at this bloke's work from a careful distance for years now, and I find it very, very, very ordinary. You know, who knows what happened? He took the samples out of the Melbourne Botanical Gardens onto a plane. He didn't sit with them. They were down the back, obviously, in the luggage. Who knows what could have done?
Unless he had them in his trousers.
Well, indeed, unless he smuggled them in. Then he smuggles them into New Zealand, you know, obviously nod, wink to the customs people on the way in. They're left in a lab. Anything could have happened to them there. They were put in a taxi to go from the airport to the lab. What could have happened there? Probably, you know, tampered with. Then they're...
Dean Capobianco style.
Indeed, Dean Capobianco style. I mean, that's the thesis I'm developing. It's Capobianco all over again. All over again, Roy, with this fire blight. And the bloke gets in on Monday morning, well, obviously he had to open his mail. He'd been away in Australia. He had to do a few other things. They're lying around. Anybody could have torched them with a Bunsen burner.
Come in with a bit of fire blight.
Indeed, stuck it on there. Look, I think, you know, how certain were you that Happening Hales, when he blurted out, blight, 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 was right?
Actually, I immediately thought, hello, this bloke's a New Zealander. Look, I think we've got to state some facts. I've had it with New Zealand.
They've
been
asking for it ever since the underarm incident happened.
I'm glad the underarm incident bloody happened. If you look at it, you've got your Crow brothers that are pale imitations of the Chappell brothers. You've got your Sam Neill, who's a pale imitation of Mel Gibson. You've got your David Longy, who's a pale imitation of Gough Whitlam. Everything about New Zealand is sadly a very, very pale, poor imitation of Australia. They know it. As well as that, we have the best, beautiful, most delightful, chunky, biting apples in the world, and they know it. And they've got those pathetic, fire-blighted, bloody excuses for apples. I don't know if you've had a New Zealand apple. I have. No taste, floury, dull, thick-skinned.
On the rot.
On the rot. Even that bloody picture, the piano. The piano, which I regard as a New Zealand picture, not an Australian. It's a New Zealand picture. To wit, very dull.
Roy, do you think it could be industrial sabotage? Do you think it could be industrial sabotage?
Of course it's industrial sabotage.
Do we need ASIO?
They went over to bloody South Australia. It's not Hale, but one of his mates. Let's say his name was Bop.
Yeah, there you go.
Slipped into the Botanical Gardens in Adelaide. Hello? Goes home, fire blight. Go to the Botanical Gardens in Sydney, they'd find fire blight there.
Oh, yeah.
They're fire blight crazy! I've had it with you.
Roy, what are relations?
They're Kiwi bloody magic, just a pale bloody imitation of Australia too.
Yeah, that's true.
Chris Lewis, that bloody hopeless dud, bloody ordinary tennis player, a pale imitation of Pat Cash.
The All Blacks, just a
pale imitation of Armies.
Or less. Now,
Rugby league, they're hopeless.
look, Roy.
The only bloke they had was that John Walker, middle distance runner. Big bloody yawn he was. You know? And he was born in Australia.
You know, look, this nation's got a lot of problems, Roy, and I want to establish an idea tonight. I don't know how it's going to go over. Look, this nation's got a lot of problems. We've got people worried about whether they should take the $450 for the $60,000 they've saved up. We've got a lot of problems, in other parts, with, health insurance and so on. But I think we could bring this nation in behind the current government with a war on New Zealand. I think what New Zealand won't like it is a dawn raid. I think what New Zealand is scared stiff of is a lot of Australians coming over in boats with guns, pointing things at them and saying, stand over there, pal, until we've spoken to you. And stop trying to be funny. All that sort of stuff. I think what New Zealand would like to see is a good old-fashioned shelling war. And I think this could be just the thing that this nation needs to pull it in behind us, behind the Sydney Olympics, behind the Federation celebration and so on. Could it work?
It'll solve unemployment.
It's certainly solve unemployment.
Be good for the economy.
And let's not forget that the current Prime Minister's name is John Winston Howard, named after Winston Churchill, who was only any bloody good when he went to war. So I say, take a cue, John Winston Howard, from the idiot you named afterwards, and let's get across the Tasman. Let's get a few blokes in there. Let's get a bit of support to the idea of knocking over Flyabite by killing a few New Zealanders. I think the audience is voting with their hands.
I mean, they've only got that bloody Winston Peters.
Yeah.
He's a pale imitation of John Howard. How much bloody vanishing cream is that bloke wearing? By the way, I think I've found some firelight. It is actually, look.
Oh, that's lighting the Buggery.
Yes, from the Sydney Botanical Gardens. We better let them know.
No, yeah, we better. No, we'll go down straight after this. Now it's a tremendous thrill to welcome back to Yana's a woman who's left us totally limp time after time with a sultry, no-nonsense approach to swivelling the hips in tune with the wild rhythms laid down by the brand new Beatles. Tonight, her swivelling is supported by the Nissan Cedrics, and right downstairs on the toes, look out for the lively footwork from the Subaru Liberty RX sedans. The tune Game of Love, Australia, can you start twisting the night away and create a din by clashing your buttocks together as you welcome to the bug house, Ms. Monica Trapaga! Ric Birch tells all arrangement of the Game of Love. The Beatles and the Cedrics on the turn with the genius of gyration, and I could get a struck match between their work and the spine-tingling toe work of the fabulous Subaru Liberty RX sedans. And what about Monaco performance? Well, that once again has reduced everybody. I think I can speak on everybody's behalf to a heap of slightly damp rubble. Congratulations to all. Now, Roy, fox hunting. Look, it's come back into the news this week. It's been on the boil for some time, and I know you've got some interesting statistics that you want to lay on the audience. We've been running a poll here on fox hunting. Can I get you to take us through the questions the survey asked, and then the results, which I think will shock a lot of Australians?
Yes. The questions were simple, HG. The first one was, have you ever fox hunted? Yes or no. Do you like fox hunting? Yes or no. Interestingly, with the statistics, with the audience, actually, I think we polled about 50,000 people who've been into the club over the last 18 months. Of the first question, have you ever fox hunted? 0.2% said yes. Yes. Do you like fox hunting? 99% said yes. I think there's a groundswell of opinion out there that says thumbs up fox hunting.
Yes. Look, can I just say, I don't know how many people would be familiar with this caper. Obviously, you get it dressed in the morning in the funny gear, get up pretty early, and then you have a couple of slugs of something that's pretty stiff, like something as close to rocket fuel as the liquor store will allow. Then with the funny gear on, you throw a leg over a big chestnut, and you get a lot of hounds, hounds on the howl. Somebody with a bit of a trumpet, and then they sort of sniff and up they go, clippity-clop, over fences, clippity-clop, over fences, on the howl. All that sort of stuff, and then they spot a scent, and then everything converges, and they get this small thing about this big and just rip it to shreds. And then they have another couple of stiff ones, and up they go again, over fences like that. And the great thing in Australia is you have barbed wire. I just love it when I see a horse go over barbed wire and a couple of dogs go through barbed wires, because there's always a bit of telltale gash. Or gash, or just streaks on everything by the end of the day.
Hunt and rub, we call it.
Now, Roy, what are the implications of this survey? I mean, I know it looks as though the Labor Party is in a bit of trouble in England with regard to obviously knocking it over there, and I know there's a lot of chat in Australia. What are the implications, do you think, of a survey? Do you think we could extrapolate from those results to the whole of the Australian, the public, vis-a-vis fox hunting?
Look, I've been listening to a lot of talkback radio, HG, and it's all pro-fox hunting. Yeah, I think the nation is galvanised behind your hunters.
It's an issue, isn't it?
It is a big issue. I hope it doesn't tear the nation apart. Well, 99% would tear 1% apart, but...
Well, that's right.
Hey, that's happening.
Yeah, that's fox hunting.
Hey, that's Australia.
Now...
my feeling is, actually, that it's a thin edge of a wedge. I've always felt about fox hunting, I've always loved it, because it proves to yourself, it's a metaphor to prove the human ascendancy over animals. Because if you give animals a bit of a sniff, they'll bloody well take over.
Yeah, they will.
Next thing you know, bloody Simpson's donkey will be getting a DSO. Posthumously, you know what I mean? You got to keep them bloody well down there. Yeah. Nothing sends out a better signal than getting on a horse, forcing it to follow the dog that's following the fox until you kill the mongrel bloody thing, and have the tail on your mantelpiece with your pipe, and a couple of chums round, and they say, how did you get that? And you say, I bloody bagged it this afternoon.
Now, Roy, are there any ways we could make it more humane? Look, I think everybody loves seeing dogs, on the howl, on the run, horses, clippity-clop style. Is there anything we could do to sort of defuse what is, I believe, a legitimate RSPCA concern? Is there any way we could just get a bit of a rag and dip it in a bit of something, like kerosene?
Well, you could have the fox, I suppose, put down humanely,
and then drag
Northern Territory style.
Yeah. It chooses to die with
it. It chooses to die when it puts its paw on them. Not a worry. Yeah. And then you tie it to a bloke.
Yeah, who's on the run.
Who's on the run. Someone quick and who's got a bit of speed.
Steve Monaghetti
style. And then...
clippity-clop. And then when you... Steve Monaghetti and tear him to bits. Would you go that far? Or would you look behind him?
No, I think you train the dog to leave Steve alone. Just fiddle with the dead carcass.
Roy,
it'd be just as much fun.
Yeah, it would. I don't think dogs would mind. Now, look...
you could use rabbits. True. Bunnies. I'd like to chase a bunny. Tied to a bloke.
Look, you think knowing it was tied to a bloke and dead...
I mean, anything tied to a bloke. Anything dead tied to a bloke.
But do you think it'd ruin it, knowing that the rabbit or the fox was already dead?
suppose it would a bit. Yeah, I suppose it would a bit. What if you had a dead bunny tied to a big dead fox, tied to a bloody quick dog, tied to a horse, tied to a bloke,
Tied to a Land Cruiser.
tied to a Land Cruiser.
Yeah. That's right. Well, that could go anywhere.
Tied to a quick boat.
Yeah. Listen, just before we leave this topic, I know the Rooting King loved to hunt. What was he like when he got the flare of a fox in his nostrils?
Well, the king hated the dogs. The king never needed dogs. Not Rooting King.
No.
Oh, no, he liked getting the foxes by himself. Right. He'd bark, he'd do the... he'd do everything. He'd wear the jacket, you know what I mean? He'd have the hot toddy.
Yeah. Oh,
He's
just
a
going
funny
back.
bloody horse.
Yeah, he was. Just going back, what does the boat do in that sequence?
Sorry, well, I'm not too sure. But it had to be a sort of...
What, hovercraft?
Well, that's not bad.
Yeah, no, and an 18-foot skiff.
Well, otherwise you limit yourself to...
Land and sea.
Well, the waterways.
Yeah, true. You got to get back on land.
Well, yeah. Horses, bunnies, foxes...
They all love
people,
swimming.
boats.
Now on the Director's Special, it continues as we welcome to the Bug House a man who has had all the greats working for him in his biopics. He's had, a terrific range of cast packed down on the Yuma Bushbreak, Flirting, Dimboola and Sirens. Nissan Cedric, can you scream, stand by, turn over, speed, action, cut, and when you have a look at it back on the video split and give it the thumbs up, can you shout, that's a wrap, as you give us the John Duigan story?
Lights, camera, action! He's a control freak, he's got a cool streak. Open up the shutter, flirting with the cutter and cut. Print, John Duigan's the man. Another film in the can. He's a control figure, the focus a tweak. Open up the lens, see what the actor intends and cut. Print, John Duigan's the man. Another film in the can. Another film in the can.
Yes, thanks very much for coming in, John. And now, the film that's currently released of yours is called The Leading Man. Now, this is basically for those who know the AC/DC tune Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. It's a representation of that in film. We've got a clip here. Now, I should explain, the hubby is on with one of the stars of the play. A male lead in the play decides to help out the hubby by sort of suggesting that he'd make a good companion for the playwright's missus. We see the playwright and the leading man, if you're following me, at a bar setting this up now. And look at the bloke on the right.
Banal plot, you know. Two people who could be happy together, but only at the expense of the third. I said I was a mercenary at heart. What? I said I was a mercenary. What does that mean? I could seduce your wife. Are you crazy? I'm dead serious.
Yes, now we need to talk about John Bon Jovi as a way of discussing The Leading Man. Do you obviously, you'd seen him in previous things, or did you come to him totally new as a director?
I came to him new as a director, but I was impressed by his temperament and his footwork. I think he's a good judge of a run, and with his googlies, I thought he could develop into a good all-rounder.
How did you get on with John Bon Jovi the band, or Bon Jovi the band? Were you a fan of theirs? Had you seen them?
I hadn't seen them live at the time I cast him. I mean, I knew him as this face covered with very long hair, and I didn't realise that he was actually very serious about acting. When I sat down with him, I could see, and started to read with him, I could see he was really a major talent, and I think that he's going to go a long way.
He's had a bit of a reputation as a hellraiser in the band. He was just playing a part then, was he, as the hellraiser?
It's hard to tell. I mean, he was, I guess, a vestige of his past was the fact that there were very large numbers of groupies that would turn up from time to time. Whenever he would actually appear, they would throw their underwear in his direction. And ever a one for a good business deal, the production manager saw the opportunity to actually sweep these pairs of underwear together and do a deal with a Japanese import-export firm.
As thrown at Bon Jovi.
Well, you see, there's a big market for used female underwear in Japan, where they sell them individually to lovesick businessmen.
Oh. Isn't that a beautiful story? And that's how you finance the film, is it? Off the underwear trial?
Yes, basically, we were able to shoot an extra 2 weeks on that. There's a lot of lovesick businessmen in Japan.
And when the film budget was going down the gurgler, you had to send John out the front a few more times just to get the underwear coming back in.
That's the way it went.
John, that would be a very interesting film to make. The story of Japanese businessmen and what they get up to with used underpants from the West. Have you been lured to this as a story at all? And do you know what they get up to in the quietness of their own sadness with the garment?
Well, I can only speculate and base my speculations on the sort of things that I get up to with my own underwear myself.
Did the producer give you a presentation pack of underwear when you left the shoot?
No, because I'd actually kept a selection of the underwear that had been thrown at Mr. Bon Jovi. But actually, one of the things about the Japanese company is that they always sell them better if they actually can include photographs of the owners of the underwear. Now, we couldn't actually supplement that, so I did a side deal with Barry Humphries, and we got some coy pictures of Dame Edna Everage, shoved them in with each pair of underpants, and their business is booming.
Is there any sense of, I don't know what we're talking about this, value-addedness with the underpants? If there are any sort of stains at all, John, does that bring a bigger, more yen, I suppose?
I think you charge more for discharge, yes.
You're no stranger to working with actors who have problems with underwear, are you? Elle Macpherson comes to mind, and you seem to be interested in luring into films people who are, previously seem unlikely starters in the acting caper.
Yes, I suppose so. I mean, I think that that people like Elle and Bon Jovi have been doing quite a lot of acting in public. Actually, now that you mention Elle, I think that one of the more responsible ways of approaching that particular shoot was when we did the nude scenes, because we had some very degenerate members of our crew. We had a bald grip who would breathe heavily whenever he got near the actresses.
Aren't they animals, those grips?
Well, they can be. We had an electrician who would dribble copiously whenever he got near them. So when I came to actually direct the nude scenes, I decided to have these members of the crew blindfolded, and the actresses were very pleased when they came on the set and saw that this was the case. But they whispered amongst themselves and asked if I could be blindfolded. I said it was only really the degenerate members of the crew that needed to be blindfolded, and they said, exactly.
So did you offer to put your underpants on your head?
Yes, I did, but that didn't work because they actually insisted that the holes for the legs be sewn together. So I was literally directing sight unseen.
Now, did they have to? Did Elle Macpherson and John Bon Jovi, for example, did they have to audition at all? Did you audition them, or did you just take the name on face value, knowing that it would add value to the film in terms of promoting it?
Yes, no, they absolutely had to audition. I auditioned several people for the roles, and I felt in the case of Elle that if Norman Lindsay had still been alive, he would have been delighted to have had the opportunity to paint her.
Although you got her to bulk up, didn't you? She had to eat a lot of pies and things to get...
Yes. It was hard to get her away from the pies, as a matter of fact. She ate up of her own accord. I had no interest in her becoming big, but she chose to be that way, and I thought she looked marvellous.
Right.
Do you believe that sort of anybody can act? I don't mean this as flippant as it sounds. Obviously, these people are applying their idea of acting in promoting lingerie or being in a hard rock band or a soft rock band, depending on your attitude. Can anybody in public life, is it always a performance? I mean, could John Howard appear in a film?
Yes, I think he could. I think he would be rather good in, films of the genre like The Mouse Who Roared or something like that. I think it is possible I think everybody has the potential to act, but maybe it's a matter of nerve, and it's the ability to appear to be relaxed in public that allows people to get away with it.
Yes. Now, a lot of your films, you take on the idea of ethics as an idea. I think in your early days you rejected, say, logical positivism, which suggests that, things are metaphysical, meaningless because they can't be measured. And you took on ethics as an idea. That is, that people are responsible for actions, etc. Now, has this been an enduring theme for you, that people are responsible for actions, and therefore so are filmmakers? That being the case, filmmakers, particularly American filmmakers who make films about violence and sex without any for no other reason, are they then ethically, in your terms, creating problems?
Not necessarily. I think it's the way that violence is depicted in films. I think if violence is actually filmed in a way that excites the audience, then I have questions about it.
So you'd have trouble working with, say, George Miller because of Mad Max?
No, because I think violence of that kind is done also in such an expert way that it's essentially entertaining. People can see that it's comic strip. Right. It's only really when I think those who have a disposition to be excited in a particular way by violence, when the films invite their aggressive instincts, that I think that it becomes a problem. But I'm against censorship of any kind. I think it's simply just up to filmmakers themselves to take responsibility for what they do.
Self-censorship. So can you cite any films that you think treat violence in the wrong sort of way?
Personally, I think Natural Born Killers is a film I didn't much like. It's films like that that actually invite copycat killers. On about 3 or 4 occasions so far around the world, people have, if not dressed up as those characters, they have said when they've been arrested after going on some sort of imitative killing spree that that was the film that inspired them. Now, personally, as a filmmaker, I would hate it if somebody tried to justify what they'd done, or at least said that they'd been inspired by what they'd seen in a film of mine.
Just coming back to The Leading Man, look, most of your films have a certain sort of social twang about them, sort of exploring, growing up in Australia and so on, whereas this seems to me just a purely entertaining film, a film made in another country without really being able to, I was looking for, say, Thatcherist implications or something like that, but it comes over set in a rather, damp English, mawkish sort of climate. Is it meant to be an entertainment, or is there a larger message there?
No, it's purely an entertainment. I think that there are films that can have social messages, and there can be films that are purely entertaining films. Amongst the films that I like, there are films of both kinds, and I hope to be able to make films of both kinds.
Well, on that cheerful note, it's time to wish John all the best for his film-filled future, and The Leading Man in particular. And I ask all Club Buggery viewers, whether they're at home or here in the Yarners coming back to the ABC, to get out their copy of Cinema Papers and bang them together to thank John Duigan.
a control freak. He's got a cool streak. Open up the shutter, flirting with the cutter and cut. Prince John Duigan's a man. Another film in the can. Another film in the can.
I think the big news in film this week is that Eric Cantona, the Manchester United soccer player that is, who's just retired, and is going to link out with Mickey Rourke to make a film. Roy, what's the story here? What's the nature of the
I think
plot?
they're playing failed boxers, HG. I assume Eric would probably be a failed kickboxer.
Yes.
I'm not too sure.
Yes.
But I think it could work because Mickey's got that sort of roguish... Remember him in Barfly? Wasn't he good in Barfly?
Tremendously exciting man.
I think he was a boxer.
Yes,
I think he was a sort of junior welterweight.
Many years ago.
Many years ago.
Reprised the act.
No, he got back into the ring.
I know, he reprised the act with not much success.
Yeah. No, I think he took out some bloke.
not.
He took out some bloke that never fought before in his life.
Can't remember a thing
about it.
Yeah.
But he took him out in the 12th round, I think it was.
Look, will Eric and Mickey get the fat shorts on and the big boots and get out there and do a bit?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah?
Oh, I think so.
Where would you be?
I think it's based loosely on the life of Ozzy Joe Bujner.
That'll be a big
Takes two blokes to play him.
Yes, that'll be a very big picture. And now it's an enormous thrill for Club Buggery to present on the stool this evening an exhibition of old-fashioned hats in the air, jaw-dropping magic. Look, I love magic. I love the whole magic thing. I try and work out how they do it. But let's have a deep drink of the craft right now as we welcome to the stool Timothy Hyde and the amazing Linda.
You're here live on Club Buggery. Indiana's coming back to the ABC.
Yes, and now we celebrate your endeavour with the threads. Roy, before we go to this week's winners, let's have a look at the happy couple, or the happy trio, I think it was, who greeted the judge this time last week.
Yes, actually, it was Kate, Angela and Brent. We set off to the Peter Shamara cell, where they were met by the local member for Grainler, Anthony Albanese. And Anthony certainly knows how to enjoy himself, took the kiddies through and gave them an absolutely splendid time. Very engaging bloke. Taught them how to do the pokies, obviously, and then I think he might have taken these young kiddies bowling.
Nothing I like more than a game of pokies with my local member.
Yes, the local member. And he did a terrific shot here. Spoilt the game for everyone, no surprises there. And then it was on to the snooker, where Anthony was very, very ordinary. And then the young kiddies took over, actually. It might have been Angela, who showed she was an absolute dab hand. None of these shots were set up. She was absolutely tremendous. I think she had a break of 19 there and ended up potting the black. And then it was off to enjoy a bit of seafood Albanese, which is a special Petersham RSL dish, HG, where the seafood is covered with a lot of rubbish. And those kiddies had an excellent time.
This is living.
I'll say.
Yes, tremendous to see the battered slab still on the menu there at Petersham RSL. This week prizes, stick on tats. We've got the toolboxes. We've got a couple of CDs, Monica's Seaside Adventure, plus the big one from Melanie Oxley and Chris Abrams. Roy, plus this very, very big bonus prize.
This week, HG, we're sending a happy trio to the Sydney Football Stadium to see Illawarra v South. Oh, no! Oh, this is going to be tremendous, HG. All the skills out there. It's going to be marvellous because this is living.
This is living. This is living, yeah.
Just here, congratulations. You've come in black. Was it your idea?
It was.
What's your name?
Danny.
Danny and?
Joe.
And Joe. Danny and Joe, for how long have you been together?
About 3 years.
Have you been to the Sydney Football Stadium before?
No, we haven't.
Have you seen Illawarra v Souths before?
No, we haven't.
You'll go because?
This is living.
Oh, yeah.
Five rings. I sing about five rings. Five big inflatable rings.
Sadly, we come to the end of another show. We come to the end of our director's special here on Club Buggery. Roy, where are you off to in the coming week?
Actually, I'm off to Canberra to the steers auction that's happening. The Canberra abattoir is being sold off. Yes. And there are some terrific items I want to put a bid on. There's the gravity and motorised nasal probe and stimulating probe. There's the Jarvis carcass splitting saw and bleeding shackles.
How long since you've seen a Jarvis?
I haven't seen a Jarvis bleeding shackle in years. It'll bring back so many memories. And also, I haven't seen one in years either, HG, the Kemp Master brisket saw and captive bolt pistol. So I'll be putting a big bid on those.
Roy, look, I'm going along to watch some rugby league on Wednesday night. Look, I'm not going to learn any players because I'm doing that as a protest because I want to bring peace to rugby league. Yes. I will only start learning players when there is peace between the two tribes of rugby league. Yeah. I'm just going to go along and enjoy the spectacle and try and imagine nothing in the last 2 years has happened.
No, that's a good idea.
I think it's going to be a terrific night. State of origin, New South Wales playing Queensland. And, I've got a tear in the eye already because I know it's going to be so good. So good. As we sign off from Yarners, coming back to the ABC, Roy and I'd like to thank Ric Birch, John Duigan, Monica Trapaga, the Subaru Liberty, RX Sedans, the Nissan Cedrics, the brand new Beatles, and Ian Turpy, and you, the audience, whether here in the back to the ABC or there at home on the tug. Thanks once again for taking interest in variety. Finally, it's time for Act 10 in the Battle of the Sounds. This battle has captured the nation's imagination. We're doing so much website work with it, tabulating the votes. It's just incredible. And I believe it is because this battle, unlike so many media offerings in this day and age, this battle delivers what it promises, and that is class. Week in, week out in the toughest variety competition in the world. Tonight, contestant number 10 is hurling before us the Aretha Franklin classic Think. Australia, can you create a din at your place? Because taking the ball up in the battle tonight and getting the hard ones on the turn is Melanie Oxley. See you next week, Sid Bidders.
You better think about what you're trying to do to me. Yeah, think. Let your mind go, let yourself be free. Let's go back, let's go way on the way back when I didn't even know you. You couldn't have been too much more than 10. Just try. about what you're trying to do to me.